Hi, this is Michael Waits recording live from Money 2020 Asia 2025 in Bangkok. Thank you for joining us for this special edition of Insurance for the New Possible, where we discuss the future of finance, technology, and insurance. Our next guest is Maria Agustin. So close. Principal Counsel, FinTech at Agoda. At least you're smiling. Thank you so much for coming to the show, and thank you for joining us at Money 2020 Asia 2025. How are you doing?
Thank you for having me. I'm doing very well and very excited to have this conversation with you, Michael.
Let's do it. So legal teams are often seen as risk avoiders. Don't do that because it may be too risky kind of thing, right? But increasingly, they're acting as facilitators of innovation, right? What does it take for legal to become a true co-creator in embedded insurance solutions or frankly, any product co-creation?
All right. So there's quite a bit of a story there. Embedded insurance, it's something that is, I would say, not very new, but being revamped right now with open finance.
Yeah.
Embedded insurance started with bancassurance. In the US, in Europe, it existed since the 80s, right? The new thing is that we are now embedding technology, open, all sort of the data, open banking. That enables a new whole thing for the insurer. It enables a new whole thing for everyone in the insurance distribution chain. And that leads to regulators start to think differently.
Okay, how?
They started from, all right, insurance is a simple product essentially. Someone underwrite the risk, you sell it to someone. When they make a claim, you pay. But then now they're changing it to be, okay, you don't actually know what's the distribution chain because it's all API connection. The distribution chain that I meant is that from the reinsurer's side to insurer to go to anyone selling online, like for example, marketplace or even online banking, e-wallet, up to the policyholder, there is always a gap of understanding who are these people. So the regulator now changed their risk appetite in a way that, so what are you guys doing? How do you make sure the risk is mitigated? How do you make sure the potential policyholder have what they need to be? So that's where legal came in to help the business to understand that point of view. And also at the same time, we could educate the regulator that this is what's happening in the world.
So which way did it come from? Right? In the sense that, did the business come to the legal department or the legal team and just say, hey, wait a second, now that there are these steps in between, because before you mentioned bank insurance, right? So let's say the 1980s or 1990s, your bank relationship would sell directly to you. I know who you are. So there's no gap between me, who's selling you the insurance, and you, who's buying it. So I know what the risks are associated with you because I'm already giving you banking products. So in the sense, like when it became embedded and technology started doing this, did the legal teams come and say, wait a second, we need to figure out what this is? Or did the business teams come and say, hey, what's our risk here?
I think that's something that needs to be done at the same time. Both need to proactively reach out to one another.
Right.
Legal, ideally, we should be able to say to the business team that, hey, there are changes coming from this regulator. This is what we foresee. And let's align on the value. What are we trying to do? And the business should be able to understand that there is a change of risk appetite here. And when I say there is a change and we need a value alignment, it's because in the 90s and 80s, insurance is sold, not bought.
Right.
No one thinks about, I want to buy insurance. You think about, yes, I want to buy a house, I want to buy a car, but you don't proactively go to the insurance company and say, I want another one.
Right.
And in the embedded insurance model, we change it. We change it to be not insurance is sold, but insurance is bought. And that is done through the hyper-personalized risk underwriting model.
So what changed exactly? Like, what was the regulator's view on this when this first started happening? And then how did you become part of this co-creation process? Because in the old days, what would happen is if there was some legal risk out there, they would come to you and go, okay, what do we do about this? How do we disintermediate or mitigate it? But in this case, now there's product involved, right? So at what point did they say, we need to have legal there with us throughout the entire process to help co-create whatever these new products are?
So let's take the practice of the regulators in Southeast Asia,
Okay.
right? Let's take Singapore, Malaysia, Indonesia, Philippines.
Right.
All these regulators, they've started with a very traditional insurance regulator, regulations, which means agent, broker, you get a license, you can sell.
Right.
Outside of agent, broker, you cannot sell insurance because
Right,
this
right.
is a regulated product,
Right, right,
right?
right.
Now, with the technology that allowing embedded insurance, they are not saying now everyone can sell,
Right.
although they are leaning towards that direction.
Really?
They are saying, come to me, I want to see your technology, and we will talk. It's the sandbox model that each of the regulators has now been enabled. So they changed their position from I'm telling you what to do
I'm
to
telling you what
be
to do.
tell me what you're doing. I will try to understand as much as possible.
It's nuanced, but it's actually really strategically a very different response, no?
Yes, it's a very different shift of mindset from the regulator. And then when I say they're leaning towards allowing people without license to sell insurance, there has been cases around it. Like for example, in Taiwan, the insurance commission there, they issue a policy where you can do a cross-industry selling, which means so long the product relates to the insurance product relates to the goods that you're selling,
Right.
even when you don't have license, you can sell it at your store. Just make sure in every store you've got one insurance advisor available, which is a lot lighter compared to everyone talking about insurance have to have license.
Does it also, you're in the travel business, yeah?
Yes.
So does it also impact the travel? So here's a real question for me. If all these changes, right, now mean that the business comes to you and says, we want some help or a partner with you and your teams in co-creating some of these insurance products, do they also come to you and say, hey, maybe you can also help us? Because now that we're partnering on stuff and we see the value that you add in the co-creation of products, are you also leaning into co-creating other travel products as well?
Well, travel products is in a slightly different profile than insurance products.
I know.
But also, I think there is a future in terms of embedded insurance and open finance touching the travel industry. But I think the travel industry, personally, I think not as matured as we would like it to be to adopt this open finance era.
Fair enough.
Now, if I go back to the co-creation model with product, there are two things that I always keep in mind. One, I think legal counsel need to sit with product, data intelligence team, probably even finance and the engineers from the very first day, from the ideation part of it. So they could take into account the pros and cons, balancing what's the value they want to achieve, and also balancing what legal needs in terms of the user journey. And secondly, I think as a legal counsel, you need to start have customer first mindset. So not just talking about, okay, let me help the team and then check box my KPI, but it's all about think about the customer. What do they feel? Because in an open finance era and embedded insurance, it's very, very easy for a customer to feel this is intrusive. This is all my data. This is very intrusive. And that's a delicate balance.
Very. So then how do you think about, because now you're talking about customer experiences as well. And if you're sitting there during the co-creation of the product, then you're also impacting the customer experience. How do you approach co-designing the flow of this product with the product teams and the tech teams?
So I pretty much do this in my previous role. Actually, before I came to the travel industry, it's pretty much all the insurtech and the protection product role. The way I did it, I would list down, here is the requirement from the regulator. This is a must-have. This is a nice-to-have requirement. This is what I think we could achieve. This is what we should do that I think we could achieve this.
Right.
And that would then be translated into, can this be a good customer journey? For example, in Europe, selling insurance is very, very difficult. You gotta have IPID, they call it. Basically, insurance product information disclosure sheet, basically. And if you are talking about retail environment, for example, where you want to sell insurance, no one would buy a laptop and stand there for 10 minutes listening to you read out the product disclosure.
No.
Definitely not.
No.
So that's where technology came in, right? What we could do is probably give them a grace period where, okay, you can pay now, but if you go home and read the product disclosure, you don't like the product, then we'll refund your money back. If you make a cancellation within the next 7 days, and we'll refund you 100%.
So if you take some protection policy for some device you're
Yes.
buying, you have whatever time period is decided, since you're not going to stand here and read the whole thing, we'll give it to you. You pay for it. If you don't like it in 7 days, you just come back or whatever the time period is.
Yes.
We'll give you your money
like
back.
a disclaimer. This is not legal advice. I think you should ask your legal counsel.
Yeah, for sure.
to do this.
Just a quick
That's
little
from my
disclaimer.
personal experience.
Right. That's fine. Sorry, go ahead.
And the other part of it, there must be a basic understanding of the underlying premise between legal and the business team. When we're talking about insurance and finance, these two are very regulated. There is always a possibility for you to talk to the regulator and explain to them a new innovation that you're doing, but also you must respect the history. So the way I review and build insurance products is always looking into history. What are we doing right now and what the regulator might be thinking for the future? So basically a forecast of what I could understand from their behavior.
You brought up the term sandboxes, so I want to go back to that for a second, but you also talked about history and what the future is going to bring. I think all these three things are related. So if you're building a product that's going to be used in multiple countries, the sandbox experience is going to be different. The history is going to be different. How do you work with all those things so that at the end of the day, the customer experience and the business flow that you're building works for all of these different places?
In my previous role, I work in a way that we choose the country that we think would be gold-plated, and we chose the list of country that we think less gold-plated, but the user journey in the gold-plated version would also work. So
what do you mean by gold-plated?
For example, if you sell insurance in Thailand compared to selling insurance in the UK, those are very different.
Completely.
We would say UK is a very gold-plated jurisdiction because there is no way you can come up to the Financial Services Authority and say, look, this doesn't make sense, I cannot do it. And then we use that same user journey for Thailand with a tweak of local behavior. Like, for example, in the UK, one of the key important point when you're selling insurance, other than the product disclosure, is how you represent it to the customer. You cannot in the UK say that, oh, this covers loss and theft, but you actually only cover theft. You cannot say that. Like, it must be really scripted. In Thailand, it is not as strict. So the way we would do it is we would translate those disclosure to the customer in the local word that would capture the essence, but not exactly the same way. So there is always local tweaks, but mostly in my previous role, I tried to keep it aligned.
Aligned. And are there any examples of where the flow itself changes?
Yes.
Where the insertion point changes?
Yes.
And why is that?
It's mostly driven by the regulatory landscape and also the partner behavior. So when we're talking about insurance distribution, we're talking about a lot of different things within the distribution chain. We're talking about the license of the reinsurer. We're talking about the license of the insurer. We're then talking about the distribution channel, the policy holder, and the claim management. Those are just a high-level overview of it.
Right.
So in that regard, there are jurisdictions where the reinsurer would say, oh, I can cover this, but here is a specific requirement that is imposed to me by the regulator. And same as a certain insurer in certain jurisdiction or even the law itself. So when that happened, I think that's where legal would sit with business and give them the understanding and educate them that the existing journey we are using simply cannot be used in these jurisdictions. And with them, we make a risk-based decision. Either we tweak the whole journey to follow the country,
right,
or we take a risk-based decision that we know the regulator might not like it, but this is a balance that we need to achieve to gain the commercial.
So how closely do you find yourself working with the regulators?
Sorry?
How closely do you find yourself working with the regulators?
Oh, whoa, in my previous role, that was really close. And when I was back at the firm at Herbert Smith Freehills, I'm pretty much specialized in insurance. So dealing with financial services authority is part of a day-to-day job.
Part of your day-to-day job. So talk to me about how hyper-personalization risk models can use real-time individual specific data to create a unique risk profile for each customer. Just about the hyper-personalization part of this, yeah?
Okay, I'll answer that by giving you an example.
Please.
So Michael, if I tell you you are 35 years old, you do look 35, just so you know.
Easy.
You're 35 years old, you live in Bangkok, and we know that you want to buy this credit risk insurance for your use of credit card. Say you're avoiding bankruptcy or default, and based on all this, here's the bucket where you fall into. Here is
Right.
the premium you're paying.
Right.
You would feel to a certain extent it's unfair.
Right. Because I may not be like all those other people that have fallen into my cohort.
Exactly.
Right. I'm
But
better.
what if, exactly, right?
Way better. But yeah.
Way better. We know ourselves.
Right.
Exactly. But if I then change it to a hyper personalized model, and I would tell you, hi, Michael, you're 35 years old, living in Bangkok. You drive very safely. So we think there is a low likelihood you will get into accident. You go to the gym 5 times a week doing
6
weight
times,
lift.
but yeah.
Exactly. And you're doing running. So there couldn't be any heart attack that happened to you.
Right.
We review your medical report from different hospitals and you seem to be very healthy. Here is your premium. So in that sense, you're being judged based on your behavior.
Got it.
You're not being judged because your fellow neighbor who is 35-year-old doing the same thing.
Right. Or doing things very, very different.
Exactly. That's why I think the hyper-personalized model have a real chance in embedded insurance, because I think, so when I give you an example, right? You're engaged with the idea.
Completely.
And that's the point of embedded insurance. Customers are a lot more engaged because they feel like it's a fair process. They don't feel like you're just plugging them into a bucket.
Yeah, nobody wants that.
And in the long run, it could potentially lead to a high retention. And when a high retention is there, then that's where insurance company could monetize and probably get a high conversion.
So what excites you the most about this intersection of embedded insurance and finance? What's the most exciting thing to you? Because you've been thinking about this a lot, clearly.
The impact could be massive. And I'm saying this because I have personally seen the impact myself.
Yeah.
So it's quite a bit of a personal story. So then when I start getting into insurance, the biggest chunk of my work is mobile device protection.
Okay.
Probably all of us here thinking, mobile device protection, who needs that? I myself, for the first couple years into the job, I kept thinking, how are we making so much money? Who is buying this? I myself wouldn't buy it. And then COVID happened. And that changed my view. So during COVID, in my home country, in Indonesia, where we also distribute the product, it is very common to see that in a mid-level family, they only have one smartphone for their kids. And they need it to go to school. And one day, there is this customer who made a claim, and we say, oh, sorry, there will be a bit of a delay because it's COVID. We can't find the logistic to send it to you. And then this customer say, and I heard this from the call center agent, this customer said, so you're telling me that my kid will not go to school for 2 days because they don't have any other smartphone in the house. And they got to buy that smartphone insurance because they're buying it on a retail environment and they're being offered. Imagine if you copy that retail environment into an open finance era. I think there is a chance there to say that it's a financial inclusion. You help people financial literacy, and you would be able to see the impact yourself. And I'm very lucky to have seen that impact.
Really interesting. Really interesting. So think about this. As insurers and platforms collaborate more closely, like platforms like yours, e-commerce platforms, others, right? What skills or mindsets will tomorrow's legal leaders need to make this a better experience for everybody?
3 or 4 skills probably. And this is what I hold on a day-to-day basis. 1, stay curious. Curiosity is always good. Yes, someone say curiosity killed the cat, but you're not a cat, I think. Secondly, embrace the unknown. I truly believe personally that being in the unknown is good. It's a sign that you are growing. And then thirdly, communicate. Communication is one thing in a way that this is part of the curiosity. Ask the questions you want to. Speak up your opinion. Because what I've seen in my 10 plus years of career is that I see counsel who just not speaking up. Yeah. They know there is a problem, but they hold it because they think, oh, this is not final. Let's wait until later. And then the fourth one, be more, I think, empathetic. These sectors, open finance and embedded insurance, it's not it's not everyone's favorite flavor, right? So not everyone would be so much into it. Not everyone understand the technicalities and the legality of it. So be empathetic and be patient in terms of educating your stakeholders.
Perfect. Maria Agustin, Principal Counsel FinTech at Agoda. Thank you so much for doing this today.
Wow, 30 minutes gone by just like that. Thank you.
Thank you.